Okay, so we're now recording. We're now live. All right, so hello and welcome to the Enterprise Java Newscast. This is episode number 36, recorded on the 15th of September. Our last one was in July, so we took the summer off, right?
Yep.
So hi, my name's Kito, and I have with me my entertaining co-host, Daniel Hinojosa.
Hola.
And joining us soon, we should have the ever exciting Ian Hlavats, although he's having technical difficulties and we're on sort of a short time frame. So hopefully he'll be joining us in a few minutes. So, Dana, what have you been up to? It's been a couple months.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Doing good.
Check.
I think. Hey, check.
Hey,
Ian,
can you
we
hear
hear
us,
you.
Ian? We hear you.
You're almost there, Ian. This podcast will be about us helping Ian out.
Yes.
Like he fell into the gutter
Hello?
and he's in the movie It. Hello, Ian.
Ian, you there? Hello?
Ladies and gentlemen, Ian is on Cassini, and we thought we'd never hear from him again, but straight from Saturn, we have Ian Hlavats.
Yes. So if you didn't, I just happen to know about that because I got a news alert, and I was like, oh, really? So if you don't know, this is a fun piece of trivia. Cassini is it's one of the oldest spacecraft we have that's actually
Yep.
still running,
Yep.
or was
Or
still
no,
running.
was still running.
Yep. And it was about to die, so they crashed it into Saturn.
Yep.
So
It's awesome and sad at the same time. Absolutely.
I know. Apparently, all these people
I had tweeted that I have the last part of Space Odyssey in my brain, just being playing out. It's the part that goes, "Can you hear us, Major Tom? Can you hear us, Major Tom?" And you know how it ends. And instead of Major Tom, I replaced my brains and replaced it with Cassini. Now I'm all sad about it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's the aircraft that taught us about Titan and Enceladus or whatever, the two most interesting moons of Saturn that
so
have
beautiful
like
pictures, and
water.
Saturn pictures were just amazing.
I know. And what's funny about it is because of Cassini, my daughter knows all about the makeup of the rings of Saturn.
Oh yeah, being just rocks all like stuck in orbit.
Ice too. Lots of ice.
Yeah, that's right. Ice rocks. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. So what else have you been doing? Other than
let's see. I've been I've been doing trainings, doing work, doing presentations. Got a few things that I have lined up as far as presentations go, and I'm going to come up with one presentation here shortly on serialization. Serialization just used to be this thing that a few programmers would do now and then. Just that's what they did, and everyone else is like, man, who cares? Most of the serialization happens already in the back end, and I don't have to worry about it. But it seems that with Spark and Kafka and microservices, that serialization is up in the forefront again, and we got to care more about these things. So I have something like that coming up. Pretty excited about that.
That's cool.
And going to look into as part of some other projects. I want to get good at Mesos and Hazelcast and all these different ways of doing clusters. So I'm really excited about clustering. So I think I'm going to enter that realm in 2018.
Yeah, you always intrigue me, Dano, with your topics. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I just like pushing and seeing what I can cram into my little pea brain and go from there.
I find it amazing that we're still able to learn new things, to be honest.
I know. It's just crazy.
I mean, whenever, like, I'm sitting there, like, doing, I'm working on an article about some polymer stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But I was just thinking about all the stuff I was writing, and I was like, a few years ago, I didn't know anything about, like, the whole JavaScript toolchain stuff.
Yeah, because we used to think JavaScript was this dumb. Who does JavaScript? JavaScript was a stupid, dumb idea, and now it's just like popular language, most popular language in the world.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we could.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, okay, great.
All right.
Yes, I can.
All right, great.
All right, we have Ian.
And so that concludes today's podcast. I'm Daniel Hinojosa, and that was Kito Mann and Ian. I hope you had a good time. So thanks, everyone. Good night.
It was fun, guys.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
So, Ian, welcome.
So it sounds like Ian's in the Matrix, so we're going to hear some echoes.
Oh, no, not again.
Not again.
Well, can I do with my current setup here? I'm trying to get some audio issues.
Don't worry about the audio. I've already told people that you're on Cassini and you're near Saturn, so the audience has bought it.
It's getting really hot. As I get closer to the rings here, I don't know what to say.
Yes. Yeah, you hit a little bit of an echo, Ian, but it's not that bad.
How's this? I just switched to a different headset.
Yeah, it just sounds like a different echo.
Oh man, okay.
Don't worry about it.
It's more like reverb.
Reverb.
That's echo.
Oh yeah, echo, reverb.
So I'll ramble a second while Ian's messing around there.
Ouch.
What have I been doing this summer? Not much travel. I think last time I talked to you, I just finished this Prime Faces whole of a project. It wasn't because of Prime Faces, but it was kind of a messy project. But but yeah, since then I've just been working on a couple projects, doing actually a lot of Angular priming stuff, and
I'm telling you now, Elma's going to win. We'll see when that happens.
I don't think anything wins anymore. That's kind of what I've decided.
Yeah, it's people get into something and like, ooh, shiny, and then they go chase that shiny new object.
Yeah, but a lot of things will stick around. Ian's muted. Why is he muted?
I'm actually. Can you guys hear me? Is that better?
Yeah,
that's
you sound fine.
Okay. Yeah, I had to mute. It's because the audio was coming in through two channels at the same time, right? So I had to mute one of them so that can't cause the echo. But
okay.
Shiny objects seem to be getting shinier and shinier and more useful, I find. But definitely, it's still a competitive space, as Daniel mentioned. So, is there a clear winner right now? I mean.
No, I doubt there'll ever be.
There's always a million ways to do things, I find.
Yep. I mean, Vue has it seems that has been gaining a little bit in popularity. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I've looked at it a little bit. I haven't played with it, but yeah, looks all right. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with Angular and Polymer and web components because they're. I've still been doing some Polymer stuff too, because they're both sort of different ways to do things, but they're both really powerful.
Right.
And I'm not sure I can get into React, but I think I might because my company probably needs to support Prime React. So I think I'm going to have to get into all the React stuff. So Ian, what you been up to?
Hey, it sounds like a lot of the same as you guys. Just deep diving on a few new technologies and doing a lot of Angular Prime and G stuff myself. Learning a lot, and just trying to keep up with the constant flow of information that we have to deal with as technical people, right? Professionals. So just ramping up on Docker, learning a lot about containers and containerization, and going through the kind of learning process for getting applications containerized, deploy them locally in the cloud, and trying to set up different kind of applications using Docker and different cloud providers. So hopefully I can share some of that with you guys today. But yeah, I mean, looking at difference, like you mentioned React, Kito. I haven't really worked too much with React, but I mean, the one thing in Angular, it does try to emulate some of the React approach to things. And one of the things I'm kind of learning about, like, in terms of the form handling, I think, which could probably be a pretty clear, indication of the different approaches between Angular and React, is like the way they handle forms, right? Like Angular has this thing called the reactive forms module, and another module called the forms module. So, for example, that approach, like all three of us probably coming from something of a bit of an ORM background, working with Hibernate, working with like different Java persistence technologies. Did you guys like find like this approach of basically binding your forms to some kind of object model that later gets persisted in a database? Like that's probably familiar to you guys, right? Like,
yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
You guys have worked with that a lot, right?
Yeah, and we were speculating even some time ago that the JavaScript space is just going to end up creating, what EJBs and what JSF and what all these things were, and they're going to package it as something else, and then these hipsters were going to just be seen as geniuses for what they did. Which
that's it.
Well, that's a lot of what Angular is, to be honest. I mean, they have dependency injection. I mean, really.
That's it.
So I feel it's very familiar to Java developers, just the way it's done.
Right.
This is why my eyes are stuck in the back of the head, because, it's just, everyone, oh, look what I invented. I'm like,
It's true. Yeah. It's like, wow, what a discovery. Like, I mean, we were doing composite components with JSF years ago, and like now,
right.
now
and
Angular
everyone
2.
was joking about JSF. Oh, it's a 7-layer burrito, blah, 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 blah. And then, look at our stuff. It's componentized with a life cycle. Man, screw you guys.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of reinventing the wheel, rediscovering the wheel, right? In a way, because I mean, it's been invented. It's just like, hey, look, now we can do all that cool stuff in a browser, which it is actually legitimately very cool. Actually, I think that you can take all these best practices that we've been developing for years, in dependency injection, ORM, whether or not that's a best practice is open for debate, but I like it. Test-driven development, like Karma and all these tools, like really support that approach to application development. But the difference is that it's all all running in the browser now, JSF and struts, which I noticed is on our show notes today, which we definitely should talk about. The server-side templating approach has kind of proven itself and served us well. But we're moving forward as a community, and I think that the build, test, deploy lifecycle for server-side templating apps is a lot more heavyweight compared to something like Angular, or maybe even I'm not familiar with Polymer Kito, but I imagine some of these other front-end frameworks have similar agility, like in terms of bootstrap your application, test it locally, and it's a very quick process, right?
Yeah, but I'm a little more pragmatic, though. Not pragmatic, but I don't think the server side frameworks are dead. As a matter of fact, Angular has a server side rendering piece.
True.
There's with web components. There's even like a server side web components project, and sometimes it is nice to have a little bit of templating, server side templating. So sometimes I'm doing something, I'm like, man, I wish I could just serve this up dynamically instead of having to like write an endpoint. And then things like localization are much more of a pain in the browser when they are on like the Java platform.
No, it's true.
There's like,
there's definitely pros and cons, right?
Yeah, and the other thing I think of is I always look at teams. So like there's, I might be starting another Java E project using JSF and Prime Faces. And I said, if you're going to be rewriting an older app, and it's like, I just wanted to lay this out here, you still could consider a front-end framework. And they're like, well, we don't want to have to retrain everybody. They're all back-end guys. They're all Java guys. And the reality is that, you can still build a great UI using Prime Faces. So I look at it more as, what does the team do? What does the app need to do? And, what works for that particular team,
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different skill sets, and especially if you do have Java expertise on the team, and you can go from taking that expertise into a new domain like writing client side application front end applications, either through an abstraction layer like JSF provides and like Struts provides to some extent, and leverage that existing experience, and that's great. I agree. The most talented Java developers in the world, like there's still nothing you can do about the fact that you have to compile the code. It has to get packaged into some kind of jar file or WAR file to get deployed on the server. Even with JRebel and this hot VM reloading technologies they've tried to do, it's still like you're at some point, like it's a law of diminishing returns, right? Like there's only so many performance improvements that you can achieve. And at the end of the day, it's still like there's a minimum amount of time that it will take for you to build, test, deploy the app. And something like you change, into a different environment completely, like JavaScript, TypeScript kind of environment. Compilation process is like an order of magnitude faster. The browser can fire up and shut down in less than a second. You can, like the amount of time that it takes to code and test your application, I think, is limited by, to some extent, by the tools and technologies you're using, right? So there are certain benefits, I think, too. Like I would never, there's no question that Java is a leader when it comes to things like API, web services, REST, and all these other server-side technologies. But when it competes against some of these more smaller footprint kind of front-end frameworks, I don't know. I mean, it's to me, it's still open for discussion, right? Like whether how much time can you save by switching frameworks, for example, right? Just in terms of development time. Obviously, there's other factors too. So.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I actually find the Angular development cycle to be slower than like. Because it does so much than some using Polymer or something that's a little more lightweight. Because sometimes it's compiling, I'm like, this might as well be a Java app. It's because it's doing all this crap,
True.
But yeah. So let's move on before we use up all our time here.
Absolutely.
So Dano, you have a show note here about the Equifax hack.
Man,
and you point out something I didn't know. I did not know it had anything to do with struts. I just thought...
Damn struts, I tell you. No, I'm not blaming struts.
Yeah,
so they had a fix up in March, just Equifax didn't get around to it, just because, they had to... There was a major change, I guess, was the excuse, and they didn't want to do it.
So what I haven't read into the details. What exactly is the bug?
There are two of them, and I posted the link on both of those there. They're really small and straightforward, and you should be able to click on those. Let me do the same
Possible
thing here.
Remote code execution when performing file upload.
Right. So I guess you do a file upload, and I guess it executes right away. So I posted. It'll be on the show notes as to what it does. And this is a critical, all struts 2, not struts 1. And it is possible to perform a remote attack with a malicious content type value. And if the content type value, and I'm talking about the HTTP header content type, isn't valid, an exception is thrown, which is then used to display an error message to the user. If you're using Jakarta-based file upload multi-part parser, upgrade to struts 2.3.3.2 or 2.5.10.1. You could also switch to a different implementation. They also had a workaround, but the solution is, definitely upgrade. And there were 2 openings that they needed to fix. They just didn't get around to it. and then they were attacked using these content type headers. So that's what the deal was. So even though, you know what, I think a bunch of laymen's would say, well, it's Strut's fault. Now, no, you know,
No.
they did it in time, and you know they had the workaround, and you know, they didn't patch it. Now, I'm not going to be a hypocrite because I was attacked for something very similar, and they brought my entire system down. Same thing. I just didn't get around to a patch. But yeah, these things suck, and they happen. I'm not holding other people's credit information though either. So
yeah, I figured as much. Yeah, that's just pretty amazing. Just that's the pretty. I guess it sort of underscores that it's important to have someone who's paying attention to that stuff. You know.
And oftentimes, and I just made a tweet right now. Oftentimes, I doubt companies are doing that. Everybody wants to be a part of new development. Nobody wants to, you know, do the upgrades, to do the patches or anything like that, or check the databases for any kind of vulnerabilities that are in store. More companies need to be doing that. It's a thankless job, and it sounds rather boring and painful, but it's a job that needs to be done. And companies don't get around to that. And one of the things I tweeted was, you know, because I teach a lot of classes, and a lot of these financial institutions where I conduct classes, I'll ask them, so make sure you install JDK 8. And they're like, we don't use JDK 8, we use JDK 6. And I'm like, so there have been no security patches for 6 or 7 since 2015. What have you been doing for security patches? And then crickets, right? I mean, what are they going to do with it?
Yeah.
Huh?
That's just sad.
Right. The only JDK version that has security patches, as far as I know, is 8. Now, I could be wrong about that, unless banks and financial institutions are paying Oracle for these patches to develop for those versions, but I doubt it. So, yeah, Equifax isn't the only one that's out there with vulnerabilities. Financial institution, large financial institutions. Yeah, it's a problem. We'll be seeing more of this.
And the thing is, you'd think they would, since they are an organization with all that sensitive data, that they would bother, that they would have, like, you know, someone whose job it was, or some team that was keeping up with that stuff. But
right. And so just to tap my toe in a little bit of the political waters, you know, this is, you know, the government may need to change as well for regulating these kind of things. You know, we've come so fast with technology. How do countries, and not just the United States, you know, European countries, India, China, you know, are all, you know, high-end markets now, financial markets. You know, how do you regulate that software is always up to date, and the patches are always up to date? That's going to be something else. You know, no government is equipped for that, I don't think, to make sure that financial institutions are secure in this regard.
Yeah. Eesh.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to some more exciting news.
Yeah, everyone's like, where's my money? Yeah.
Just a footnote on that discussion. Yeah, I think talking about practical tips as well, like that, I guess the only thing people can do at this stage is basically freeze their credit, right? So, in other words, like prevent any credit checks from happening in case someone does get their hands on your, you know, your identity and your
And I've been meaning to actually look into that because, you know, I'm sure Equifax, I know Equifax has my data,
I don't know
just about everybody. Yeah, I know because, you know, we bought a house a few years ago and we had to, you know, looking at our credit a lot. We signed up for all this credit, those annoying credit
I never did those.
Yeah, so, you know, they look at the different agencies, and like there's one of them that looks at like Equifax and TransUnion and whatever, and, you know, I had a score, so they must have. Yeah. So presumably my data's in there. It's no good. All right. Well,
everyone's bummed
moving
out
on.
on a very special newscast. We get bummed out at all our financial situations and credit reports.
Yes. This summer they had a conference which I meant to go to, but I couldn't, called the Polymer Summit, which was in Copenhagen, which would have been a very nice place to go to. But there were a lot of cool announcements, and one of them was they announced Polymer 3. If you're not familiar, Polymer is a library. It's not really a framework, but it's a library to help you write web components. And web components are these standards that I've been talking about for a while that let you write components that are actually native to the browser. And Polymer has some extra syntactic sugar and also data binding. So basically, between the data binding and the syntactic sugar, you can build entire apps out of them. And so Polymer 2 came out, I think it was just this year, yeah. Which is cool, and it supports a lot of the newer web component specs, the V1 specs as they call them. But they announced Polymer 3, and I was surprised to hear about it so soon. And what's interesting about it is that they have abandoned one of the web component specs that they've sort of hung on to. All the web component specs have been blessed by the other browser vendors, except for this one called HTML imports that lets you import the contents of different HTML documents into your page, and each one of those HTML documents can have references to other scripts or just scripts or images, etc. And the other browser vendors, especially Mozilla, didn't like it because it was basically another module model, because it's basically another way to handle dependencies. And they're like, well, we have these ES6 modules, and this is another way to do the same thing. Although I find it much easier to use. And so no one else has supported it, and Polymer has been hanging on to this for a long time. The other thing they've been hanging on to is Bower, which is a package manager, and everyone else has moved to NPM, but there were things that they needed, like a flat file structure that Bower provides and NPM didn't. But now there's Yarn, which is another package manager that uses the NPM registry.
Wait, it's called Yarn?
Yep. It's from Facebook.
What? Come on. What's called Yarn?
It doesn't give you good images. It makes me think of a big ball of yarn. But
there's a clustering on Hadoop called Yarn too.
Oh, really? Yeah, they probably should have done a better search before they decided on the name. Anyways, so basically Polymer 3 is just moving to ES6 modules in NPM, which is cool because it'll make it much easier to integrate with other frameworks and everything if everyone else is using NPM. It's a little annoying because the changes they're making are a little make writing the components not nearly as elegant. It reminds me more of like JSX sort of stuff. Not completely, but a little bit more. But anyways, it's a good thing for Polymer.
Right on.
So wanted to bring that up.
Nice.
Cool.
Another thing out of the project, out of the conference, there's lots of stuff there. I've just been slowly digesting the talks, but there's this company called Ionic that has this popular framework for doing mobile stuff, and they have a whole bunch of components, and they just released something called Stencil, which is like a web components compiler. So basically, you write your components using sort of the Stencil way of doing things, using TypeScript decorators. You do it in TypeScript,
right?
And then it just generates vanilla web components with like no runtime overhead, essentially, which is cool because then the browsers that support it, which is pretty much most of the evergreen browsers, they don't have any runtime overhead to use those components. And Ionic is using it because they wanted their components to work in different frameworks. They've always been very Angular focused, but now they wanted their components to work in React or Vue or whatever.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. And I was talking to Chatai Savici, who's the Prime Faces lead. He's very interested in it too. I've been trying to get him to write Polymer components for like 2 years now. So at least he's interested in Stencil. So so that's the story there. Also, in other Prime news, the Chatai and the Prime tech team have also released Prime React 1.0. So now they have three big libraries: Prime Faces for JSF and Java, Prime NG for Angular, and Prime React for React. So I was pleased to see they made it to 1.0, and I guess I'll have to learn learn React now. So
okay,
those are my UI headlines. And I also wanted to make sure we talk about sort of the big news story in the Java EE world.
Oh yeah.
So if you've been under a rock, you may not have heard this, but by now most people know that Oracle has not suddenly, I'm sure they've been thinking about it for a while, but they have donated, or they're planning to move Java EE over to the Eclipse Foundation. So it will actually be open source. And this is a really big deal. It's not going to happen until after Java EE 8, which should be out probably in the next month or so for Java 1. So all the specs they've been working on, or we've all been working on for the last couple of years, should be in Java EE 8. But beyond that, it's moving to Eclipse, and Eclipse is also where microprofile.io is located, and microprofile.io is sort of an independent effort to provide microservice features on top of Java EE. So like IBM and Payara and Tommy Tribe and Red Hat are all involved in that. So.
Okay.
So it should make it easier for them to work with Java EE if they're all under the same umbrella. So,
wow. Are they? So they were going to change the name, though, right?
Yeah, apparently Oracle doesn't want to use the name Java EE for it, and I'm not really sure what that means, and I don't know what the name would be. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I'm guessing they don't want to use the name Java. I'm guessing that's what it is. So yeah. I don't know. Maybe come up with some hip name.
Because one of the libraries that I really enjoy is called Java Slang, and they called it Vaver because I guess Oracle lawyers got a little antsy and started threatening people.
What does it do?
It's a way to it kind of brings some Scala ideas over to Java. It's called vavr.io, and it's a really great library, and it brings things like lazy evaluation. It brings in things like an either type, a try type, has better ways to handle futures. It brings in functions that can throw exceptions. So you actually don't have to generate that much Java code in order to do so. So a lot of, absolutely a lot of great stuff with it.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was called Java Slang before. And then, what happened afterwards was the Oracle lawyers got a little, I guess, got on their case about it, and so they forced it. Now, if you take a look at Vavr, V-A-V-R-I-O, and you take a look at the website, you'll realize if you move your head upside down and take a look at the website, you'll realize what Vavr means.
You got me intrigued now.
Go to vavr.io.
V-A-V-E-R?
vavr.io. I think it's what it's called.
When I have to turn my head sideways, is that what you're saying?
No, upside down. It's a perfect troll.
Oh, that's cute.
What? You see it?
Yes, vavr.io. Vavr turns Java upside down.
Cool, huh?
That's clever.
Are you showing it?
Oh, yeah, I guess we could do that. Let me see. How do I screen share? Application window. There we go. Yes, I think that's quite clever.
Isn't that great? So, like, okay, fine. we're not going to call it Java slang anymore. We'll just call it Vaver. And so if you look upside down, there it is. Awesome, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I love all of that. What I love about technology is, or about programming, is just all the different libraries and stuff out of there.
Right.
I even though I've been doing JavaScript and TypeScript for a while now, I hadn't run across this term code mod. So
What's that?
Have you run across that, Ian?
No, not yet actually. But
I was using what was it? Sign on, which is great for mocking stubbing in JavaScript, and there's some method that had been deprecated, and it said check out the code mod here. I'm like, what the hell is that? So basically, a code mod is like a thing that you can use to update your code. It's like the method signature changes, or there's some other thing. So basically, it just needs to hook into a parser for that language, and then you can have different code mods that do different things. But I'm like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. I don't know why I didn't see it before. Of course, there wasn't a good one for TypeScript, so I was kind of out of luck. But it's nice to see.
Absolutely.
So, you have any other thoughts on
cool
Java
EE? Well, yeah, just have some thoughts about that for sure. I think, I mean, I have mixed feelings. I think it's, on one hand, it's a great thing for Java. I mean, we've been pushing with the Java EE Guardians and pushing for so long now to get some kind of statement about the future of Java EE from Oracle, and some commitment, ideally, but at least some statement about its future. And this is a statement. This is saying we think it's in better hands with the Eclipse Foundation. So I think that it's a great thing for Java in a lot of ways.
Right.
It's I mean, Eclipse is a solid foundation. They've been producing like TopLink, a lot of like reference implementations for JSRs, and great tools. A lot of support from like the industry with IBM, and I think it's a pretty stable place for Java EE to live and grow. So
right.
I think I think it's good news for Java. On the other hand, too, I wish I mean, like, you would have thought the future of Java and Java EE was basically secured once Oracle acquired Sun and all its IP, right? But that's not the case, obviously. I mean, well, it is, but obviously they don't think that Java EE is maintainable within Oracle's portfolio.
Yeah, I think it does sort of point to Oracle's larger view that they're more interested in selling cloud services and packaged software and stuff than sort of raw utilities, raw infrastructure code, or being a technical leader for like enterprise development. I don't think they really care that much about that.
No, clearly.
You know what? Someone, I think they're calling it fog. Are they calling it fog machines? Have you seen this? Yeah. So people are selling fog machines or something like that, and what they are is they're cloud services that come to the ground. In other words, they're just the same machines you've had under your desk for
I get it. Yes.
For so long.
Yes.
Isn't that strange?
Yes. You too can turn your machine into a cloud. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a cloud-based service for your home.
Right. Well, I think that sort of leads us into the Docker topic. I'm skipping over the mobile stuff for a second, Ian.
Talking about cloud, sure.
Yeah, because what I was thinking about was, the reason people deploy stuff, even like I used to have a lot of servers lying around, but now I don't. There's one server in the back, and then there's another one which isn't plugged in.
It's called fog computing, by the way.
I'm sorry.
You're ahead of the game there. You got your fog computing services. Fog as a service.
But now it's like I just end up deploying stuff in the cloud somewhere, whether it's EC2 or somewhere else. But it seems to me like by using Docker, it's easier to actually be able to emulate the server environment locally. So it gives you a lot more flexibility in that perspective, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Containers and clouds go really well together. Yeah, I had spent like last few months really just trying to get my head around Docker and understand the buzz and the hype around it. Why is it so interesting? What problem does it solve? And then how does it work? These kind of questions. What's a container? And containers are not new. This is an old concept. This has been around in Linux, Unix computing for a long time. So it's interesting to see like kind of a renewal of this approach. And so my first impressions, of Docker were really good, actually. I thought, once you get your head around the conceptual kind of map of Docker, you have these like containers which come from an image. You design the image, you create the image based on some operating system. You maybe attach some volumes to it. You might join a network or two. You might combine it with other containers.
You all right? There he goes. Who's here?
Ian, you turned into a robot.
Ian's turning to a robot.
Although robots sound pretty good these days.
I am Ian. I'm a robot.
Maybe if we kill...
Let's not kill Ian. Do not kill
No.
Ian. I've been telling you.
Ian, can you hear us?
Hey, guys.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry.
That's good.
Yeah, a little network issue there.
Okay.
So, sorry, let me back up a step here. So, yeah, first impressions, concepts that, that are important to understand, I think, with Docker to be able to use it are, like, what's a container, what's an image, what's a volume? Like, you define an image. That's basically what we do, right? As Docker users, define an image. From the image, you can create a container, right? That container can have volumes attached to it for persisting files and data. You can also join a network with that. That container can attach to one or more networks or none. You can also combine containers into a stack, and you can deploy that stack into a swarm, which is like an orchestration environment where you have something like Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, coordinating the communication between the containers, scaling, maintaining availability. Then you talk about nodes, so the different nodes in a swarm. So what really intrigued me was the Docker Swarm mode went into beta on the Docker Cloud website. So I was using the Docker Cloud feature to deploy into EC2, and it worked great. And I was pretty happy with that. But there's something interesting about the Swarm mode that I wanted to try kind of. I got into it, and basically you have now a set of tools built into Docker to let you do the orchestration without any external tools or services. So speaking of tools, there's a lot of tools available for Docker. It can be a bit overwhelming at first, and some of these tools are kind of replace previous tools. So Docker Toolbox, for example, installs a bunch of things on your machine, like Docker Machine, Compose, and later you don't realize you don't actually need Docker Machine. So you can now do a lot of that stuff with the Docker CLI. Nice to know is that Docker for Mac is available, so you don't have to install like VirtualBox or VMware, any kind of virtual machines. It includes like a virtual machine as part of the installation. So you install Docker for Mac, for example. You can connect it to your Docker Hub account and start downloading your images and uploading. If you have a private repository, you can upload your own images. And deploying in the cloud. So currently what's available through Docker's website, through Docker Cloud, is you can deploy into Amazon EC2 or MS Azure. But if you want to use Docker Swarm in a different environment, you basically have to set it up yourself, which is not that much work, actually. Like I just set up a swarm on DigitalOcean for testing purposes, like 3 or 4 nodes on I think 3 droplets, right? So That's the thing too. The nodes can run on multiple. Your containers can run on multiple VMs without you really being aware of it. Docker handles this kind of load balancing for you internally, and DNS and networking and resolving the network communication between your containers. So it's pretty cool. I think I ran into some gotchas as well, like first trying to figure out how do I persist data, like where I create this container, right? But it's basically stateless. Like any changes that happen inside the container get lost once you restart the container. So where do you persist your data if you're running like a database in Docker, or even if you have an application that needs to read some files that are persistent or write to those files? So figuring out how volume drivers work, right? And that there's different volume drivers available for different environments. EC2 Docker provides some some volume drivers that work with Amazon EC2 volumes and can provision them for you easily. So what's nice is the abstraction of the cloud, right? So you work it with the console, you work with the text file. Actually, if you guys want to make like, let me share my screen. I can kind of show you a really quick demo I put together.
I think you can do that if you just go on, if you go to the left, there's a screen share button.
Okay. Got it. Screen one. Yeah. Okay. So not sure if you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Well, now we see ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
Now we're good.
So I'm just trying to get this thing set up here for us to take a quick look. Let me just open it from the console instead of doing tools. But yeah, I have this demo project I was working on. Just 1 sec here. Yeah, cd into this directory. Demo, Docker, demo. Okay. It's a little bit bigger here. So what I have, like this a Docker Swarm demo actually. So it'll show kind of the full spectrum of what you can do with Docker really quickly. First of all, I have this Bamboo directory. Since we're Java guys, I was trying. This is actually a practical example of what one Dockerization project I had, containerization project. Of how do I run Bamboo inside a Docker Swarm? The benefit of the Swarm is that there's the scalability too. You can easily scale up or down your application if you need to. But for me, more immediately was just be able to run everything with the overlay network that allows the containers to communicate freely on any port, but only exposes certain ports to the outside world that I want to expose, like 443 or 80. So I have a Docker file here for. Let me see if I can open this up in IDE. Docker file for Bamboo, which is kind of an interesting example because recently we were trying to do automated testing for Angular with Docker, right? So I just shut down my. One of the issues with testing Angular applications is that you need some kind of browser, right? So often when you're running on in a cloud environment, you don't have or a Linux server environment, you don't have a GUI, right? It's a headless environment, so you can't really run you can run Chrome actually, which is one of the challenges I tried to figure out. How do you run Chrome on Linux? Well, you have to have a recent version of Linux, right? Like RHEL 7 or CentOS 7. It won't work on 6, so it just doesn't work. So, that was the challenge. How do I install Google Chrome? Phantom.js is another option, but unfortunately, that's kind of, it's winding down. The developer is stepping down from the project, and
I didn't know that. That's too bad.
Yeah, Phantom.js is going to be sunset pretty soon.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so it's good. I mean, Phantom.js is cool. It solved a problem for a long time, and now Google Chrome has a headless mode, so you can run that for your testing.
Yeah, I didn't know it did, but I kind of thought I heard about that, so that's cool.
Yeah, it works.
Just so you know, Ian, we only have a couple more minutes, so.
Okay, no problem. I'll just deploy this sucker, and we'll go from there. So the stack probably reveals everything. The Docker file is just basically steps for building the image from CentOS. I'm using CentOS 7 as my base image. I'm defining my shell, copying a bunch of files, copying Java, in here, I have Java 8. I got my Bamboo zip file here. I'm installing Node Version Manager and installing Google Chrome, you know, bunch of stuff. And then finally, I'm starting Bamboo, right? So this takes a few seconds to run, and then it creates the image, and the image just starts up. I got a Bamboo web server here, my Apache with the proxy configuration, and I have a stack file. This stack file is interesting because it's showing basically like all the different services combining together, right? So you have like you know, basically putting it all together into one environment. So I'll go into my, I think I may have to tweak this later, but I'll just let me think about this for a sec. Pause the screen sharing. Give me 1 second here, and I'll boot this up. 2 seconds. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's go through this quickly, and then we'll stop. But yeah, it's fun to use Docker. There are a lot of tools available. Bamboo Stack, this guy. Okay, so this is the shell script that actually starts up the server, right? The stack deploys it to a swarm that's running on my local environment. So I can do Docker node ls, and I've got one node in the swarm which I'm currently connected to, and I can deploy my stack here. Just say make up a temporary password for Postgres here. A lot of the stuff you can configure through environment variables like your root passwords, your host name, so certain things like that you want to set up in advance. You can pass them through as environment variables, and Docker will read them. So this is my Docker stack file, which is using the compose format. Docker compose is like a file format.
Okay.
And define my services. I got a database. I got my app. App depends on database. Web depends on app. I'm exposing 2 ports here, 80 and 443. I'm attaching it to an overlay network so the containers can communicate with each other, and connecting it to the bridge network, which Docker creates, which allows me to access the exposed ports from my local network. So 2 volumes for persistence, and the stack is up and running. So now I can actually do Docker service ls. I see my database is running. The app is running, and the web interface is running. So just jump over to browser here, and let's take a look. Yeah, this is the pragmatic tool that ships with Docker.
Okay, cool.
Lets you see all your containers running.
Yeah,
I think you can see.
So those in the podcast are just a visual tool that tells you about all the containers that are currently running.
Great.
Yep. That's right. I'm just opening a window here, and I'll just jump over to localhost, and I've got everything running. And that's the default page. So my context path for Bamboo is builds, and should open up a blank Bamboo page. Here we go.
So why does localhost work?
Because because I'm exposing port 80 on. If you do Docker service ls, you can see that port 80 is exposed, and so is port 440.
Okay. So you bound the port on your local machine to that particular container. I got it.
Yeah, yeah. The web server is attached to the bridge network and the overlay network, and on the bridge network, it's exposing these ports. So notice like no other ports are exposed. I can't telnet to like 8085, which is the Bamboo port, but not from my local host, but I can do Docker PS, which will show me all the containers. Get the container ID for Bamboo, which is right here. I can do Docker exec, so I can run any kind of command I want on that container. I'll just open a bash shell. So I'm currently attached to the Bamboo container, and I'm actually logged in as a Bamboo user on this container. I can also do netstat. I'll see the. I don't have netstat installed, but I can do that from the web container. So I can do the same thing. Where is it here? Web. I can connect from inside the network, right? Inside the swarm. Docker exec container ID some command. Now I'm on the Apache server. You can see there's the Apache running, and I can telnet. Do I have telnet? No. So let me just install it quickly. It'll no worries.
That is pretty fast. This is pretty cool. Actually, I feel like I just went to a session and I got a Docker demo, which has actually been very helpful. Because I've read about it, but I haven't had a chance to use it. So this is pretty handy.
Cool. Bamboo Stack. Yeah, there you go. So I mean, you can tell that the service names too are all resolved by Docker. So I can do like ping Bamboo Stack app, and it knows how to resolve it. That's an internal IP address, right? So I'm only connected inside the swarm.
Oh, so that's your fog.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm connected to Bamboo.
Yeah. We just need to. You have a fog machine already. You're all good to go.
Okay.
Local cloud. Literally, I'm running like how many services here? Three services: database, app, and web on the same in the same swarm.
Nice.
A single node swarm. Now imagine this deployed on like EC2 or Azure or DigitalOcean. You might have tens or hundreds of tens, dozens, maybe hundreds of nodes working together.
Yep.
At least replicating across a large infrastructure. Right. So Docker in production, last thing I'm going to say, so Docker in production, there's a few gotchas. There's some, especially around the swarm mode overlay networking in the cloud, I find there's some bumps in the road still. They're just working it out. But I mean, that just got, just came out of beta. So I think that issue will get fixed pretty soon.
Great.
But overall, yeah, 2 thumbs up for Docker. I think it's been a pretty cool experience so far.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we got to get going. There are other things which we can hopefully discuss next time around. Just for events, Java 1's coming up October 1st through 5th. I will be there talking about Polymer, JAX-RS, MVC, JSF, all that kind of fun stuff. DevVox, November 6th through 12th in Antwerp, Belgium, which I will not be at, but I wish I was. They never accept my sessions anymore. They get too many, apparently. And here's a new conference. It's a local conference to me. It's RVA JavaScript Conf. I'm going to be speaking there. And I'm like, oh, it's a local conference. I'll drive there, and hang out for a day and do a talk. So I've never been there before, but if you're in the Richmond or DC area, it might be interesting to check out.
Great.
And Dano, there's lots of no fluff, just stuffs coming up. Right?
Yep, there are. Just take a look at the website. I just got to go.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me. And hopefully we'll do another one in a month or so.
All right. Sounds good. Ciao.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Sounds good, Kito. Sounds good, Daniel.
Bye.
Good to see you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.